This is Jonathan Ferguson, the Keeper of Firearms and Artillery at the Royal Armouries Museum in the UK, which houses a collection of thousands of iconic weapons from throughout history. And on this episode, we're taking a look at some of the weapons of Fortnite Chapter 5, which actually had a few surprises.
Fascinating that that's probably only the second time ever I've seen that system, and it's in a video game. And this video game, of all video games.
Right, let's check out some of the guns of Fortnite.
Oh, well, a highly realistic breach there with that shotgun. The entire wall went transparent and then disappeared. Okay, so pre-warned about the missing magazines. So this is a take on the AA-12. We know this primarily, or I know this primarily from the metal armature that supports the drum magazine. We can see it there. And I suppose the general proportions, but it's pretty different to an AA-12. It's more of a sci-fi shotgun with AA-12 overtones, I would say. We haven't got one to show you, unfortunately. I think we have 3 USAS-12s, but no AA-12s. I don't think any made it to the UK. Horrific colour scheme, of course. I was expecting far more cartoony than this, I have to say. The shotgun shells there are fully detailed. Who is this character, by the way?
Oh no. It's Chun-Li from Street Fighter wearing Captain America's shield. I don't know how aware you are of just how much stuff is in Fortnite. From Star Wars, Family Guy, Marvel, like YouTubers. Yeah. Honestly, I would not be surprised if you ended up in Fortnite this year.
No, I'm afraid I did not recognise Chun-Li there. It's been many years since I played Street Fighter 2, though. So this is generic pump action time now. Now it does have a tang style or a receiver safety, and the magazine tube and the support for it at the front and the cap on the magazine tube, plus the shape of the bolts. I would say Mossberg 500 series. I wouldn't like to get any more specific than that, really. But again, pretty detailed for what this game is. It's kind of weird that she's closing one eye. She's not always doing it. Is that a difference between hip firing and...
Yeah, that'll be hip fire versus aiming down sights.
No, it's a nice touch. She's not holding it into the shoulder. I can't believe I'm even criticizing this, but there you go. She's not pulling it into the shoulder. The cartridges are clipping through the lifter, the cartridge lifter, which is a minor mistake. Fairly realistic reloads at this point anyway. And then we have a magic purple jet hang glider.
While you're shooting Rick Sanchez as he throws up a wooden fortress.
Is there any... Oh my god, yeah.
Part of the reason that it's taken us so long to start even talking about Fortnite is that I think I needed, like 2 years of this show to create a foundation of sanity for you. I've had to microdose weird games over the years so you could finally do Fortnite.
It's the Scar, and I believe it's the Scar L because the magazine is somewhat curved and is smaller. And I have one here, slightly non-standard. So yeah, officially licensed. This is a gift from our good friends at GameSpot, and I haven't got the heart to throw it away. It appeared as a prop in one of our loadout episodes. Had to get it out again for this, of course. Ironically, I don't know if the Fortnite Scar always looked this realistic, because aside from the proportions, it's very detailed and the color scheme is correct, or if it ever looked more like this, but here is this nonetheless. I mean, I think it looks to me like the in-game model must have got more detailed, if this is relatively faithful to how it used to look, at least.
Yeah, the original was not quite as cartoon shaped as the Nerf one, but it did have exaggerated lines, and it was weirdly bulbous at the front. Whereas this one is just sort of the shape of it is more realistic than it used to be.
I mean, it's so realistic you could make a gun a real gun, well, obviously, you can just put a scar in a slightly bigger shell. It's very funny that Call of Duty is veering away from realistic firearms, and Fortnite, of all games, is veering toward realistic firearms. I wonder if there might even be a backlash at some point that they're making the guns too realistic. Here's our real Scar L. It's a shorter barrel. This is the sort of entry gun barrel, whereas the one in the game is clearly longer. And you can see the much more complex gas block that we have on the real gun versus the almost kind of H&K straight up, straight down shape of gas block, front sight block. I suppose the main departure here is it doesn't have the 3 rounded vents there. It just has the 1, maybe 2. So 2 instead of 3, not a huge difference. The reciprocating cocking handle. But I mean, look at the detail of the shape of the magazine catch and shroud is basically correct. Selector lever is basically correct. The flare on the magazine well is exaggerated. The proportions are exaggerated. The cheek piece on the stock is very large and bulbous, but you know, it's not that far off. Not really. This, of course, is the classic Ugg boot buttstock on the Scar. Other buttstocks are available, and I'd quite like to get one for this. Now, elephant in the room. We've had some quite realistic handling of shotgun cartridges, although I don't think the cases were ejecting. The cartridge cases are not ejecting here either, and from what I've seen, ejecting cases is not a thing in Fortnite, which I'm guessing is a hangover from when the guns looked a bit less real. Especially weird because the bolt visibly moves back and forth, which is a feature we've only had for, what, a decade in video game terms? And yet we've had cartridge case ejection since Doom. So there we have again the floating buttstock syndrome, or Gears of War syndrome, where we're shooting here and then it's coming back and maybe touching the shoulder, but it isn't being pulled into the shoulder for a nice, stable shot. That remains quite cartoony. We have a Magpul Dynamics, well, no, not really, but more of a John Wick style flicking of the magazine out to the right there.
Well, John Wick is in Fortnite, so maybe that's where these characters learned it from.
Don't know. Did the Scar always have that animation, or did it come in with the John Wick character?
One of the things they've added, we'll see some coming up, I'm sure, is in this new chapter, they added modularity to the guns. So you can now equip assault rifles with different scopes and suppressors and foregrips and things like that. Because of that, they've also changed how the ballistics work. Like, bullets have ballistics now.
Okay, so not just hit scan, but...
Yeah, it used to be, I talk about this in the How Bullets Work episode, but it used to be things like assault rifles and SMGs, a hit scan, and sniper rifles over distance had projectiles, but because they've now added the ability to put a sniper scope on an assault rifle, they've had to add ballistics so that no gun becomes too overpowered just from the use of a big scope.
Oh dear. We have an MP5. Those of you who've watched our loadout episode on the MP5 will, I'm sure, be critiquing the reload on this. Unless you download your magazine below 30 rounds, it's very difficult to load the magazine with the bolt forward. So you should be doing the lock it open thing. However, this is not actually an MP5, I'm afraid. MP5 adjacent, what I'd say. I mean, they might be vying with the Call of Duty MP5, the new one, for least realistic MP5, but at least it's not saying it is an MP5. I suppose neither is Call of Duty. Anyway, here's an emotional support weapon, an MP5-10 from a different video. We do have the slots here. Now, these are pressings or stampings that the rollers for the internal bolt run on, and they also are the runners for the sliding stock if you have a sliding stock fitted. So they are present, as is a somewhat MP5-esque ejection port, but it's the wrong shape. And you can see that these slots, this is very detailed for how wrong this gun is, but the slots run under the ejection opening and they stop in line with it. They don't stop behind it, as in here. But that's one example. Basically, every detail is wrong, and a lot of the non-details are wrong as well. like the general proportions, the lack of paddle magazine release. Again, Call of Duty removed that and only had the push button. Now, I've chosen the wrong example here because I didn't choose it for a different video. Doesn't have the push button on it. What both games decided to do to make it legally different, there is actually a legal definition of what an MP5 is. Watch this space for some potentially some more on that. They're just giving it a normal push button mag release, and that distances it from the proper design. You can see how the magazine well is in line with the bottom of the trigger group here. It's not here. It's a magazine well that's extended out. Handguard is a different shape. The buttstock, they've gone with an M4 buffer tube style buttstock, which you can get for the MP5. And if you put that on your MP5, you are excommunicado, as far as I'm concerned. It's completely wrong to do that. But nonetheless, the overall impression of this is still, that's an MP5. So it's doing its job whilst avoiding any legal difficulties. So this, like most of the guns in the game, is significantly different from its real-life counterpart, but I believe that this is supposed to be, or is based upon, the US military M2010 Enhanced Sniper Rifle, I think is its name / tagline, not its designation, which is an M24 in a tuxedo. Yeah, it's a bit more involved than that. It's a modern railed chassis system with adjustable buttstock and everything, with an M24 bolt action, barreled action set into it. So it's a sort of interim stopgap, but capable sniper rifle for the US Army until they adopt a new scratch-designed sniper rifle, which is happening now. I think the Barrett MRAD is going to be the replacement. It looks pretty cool, I have to say, in the black and with the gold decoration. Once you adjust your brain to the comic book aesthetics of the game, they make sense in context. So this pistol, I believe, we've seen other sort of mishmash approaches to this, or inspired by this design before. This is the H&K Mark 23. This has some weird stylized serrations on it that the real gun doesn't have. It suffers from slow slide syndrome big time. It's like, if the slide were that slow in real life, it would limit your rate of fire. The slide is gold, of course. Is it me, or is the whole barrel reciprocating with the slide?
Yeah, no, I think you're right.
That's weird. I've never seen that before. It's not entirely wrong, because as some of you will know, the barrel, wait, see it quite clearly with the suppressor fitted here. This is not the original Mark 23 suppressor, by the way. This is a later design, but it is designed for the Mark 23. Doesn't look right without one on, in my view. You can see that the barrel does recoil with the slide. 3 millimeters on this design, quite significantly. And then a little bit further than that before the barrel drops out of alignment with the slide, and at that point, it's unlocked. So that is a good 8-9 mil of travel on the Mark 23, because it's proportionately huge. It's a little bit more than a normal pistol. And then the barrel should stay put at that point. Whereas in the game, the whole thing just moves back and forth, and who cares? I'm really quite surprised they bother to animate the slides or the bolts, but they do. That is ugly. The dog collar wrapped around the stock, I think, is the highlight of how ugly this is. It's like a sort of pop punk AK. Strikes me almost more of a Saiga 12 gauge shotgun than an AK rifle, but I think it is meant to be a rifle. It's probably just the drum magazine that's throwing me off. It doesn't sound like a shotgun either, or behave like a shotgun in the game. But if you're going to try and make something that looked like this in real life with the cartoonish proportions and colors and everything, you'd probably find it easier to build a Saiga shotgun version. That tower style of drum mag in particular, I'm not saying you can't get that for an AK, but the full-length top rail is interesting on this. In theory, you can't do that with an AK. You have to have, you can sort of dovetail it into the handguard rail, but you have to be able to remove the the upper part of the handguard with the gas tube, and you have to be able to remove the top cover behind it. And there are designs out there that have managed to integrate them, but for the vast majority, it's a separate railed top cover.
It's funny to me that even in the Fortnite version, the AK flick reload is so iconic that even Fortnite features it with a standard magazine.
Yeah, that AK reload has got absolutely everywhere. There probably isn't an AK owner in the world who hasn't tried it at this point in real life. Right, I'll quickly show the AK. So it's hard to compete with garish video game AKs, but we do have this recent acquisition. Yeah, it's not great. A knockoff Fab Defense folding foregrip here. We've got a very cheap Chinese laser on this cheap Chinese knockoff of a Fab Defense. Actually, that might be a real Fab Defense, but the airsoft version, I'm not sure. Handguard, which does give us the rail that's on the Fortnite gun, but this does not have the railed top cover to sort of align with that. And you can see what the problem is with a traditional AK for having a continuous rail. It's the whacking great front trunnion block / rear sight block. So you need to do some substantial redesign really to get that continuous rail. Ergonomic pistol grip. The magazine has been cleaned of rust and then painted black. And this is a Bulgarian Arsenal folding milled receiver, and it's been refurbished. So it's not quite as horrific as the Fortnite gun, but something that came in recently from a police force. So we have it as an example of what happens to factory-made firearms in the field. Who did this and what for? I'm afraid we'll never know. It's horrible, but it is all black at least, and not like sky blue pink with yellow polka dots. It's inspired by, shall we say, pretty closely. I think anyone that's ever seen a Vector is going to recognize this as a Chris Vector.
It's burst only, strangely. I don't know why they chose this gun to make burst only, but
interesting. A lot of people, me included, do say that the 2-round burst is the best use of the Super V dipping recoil system that redirects the recoil downwards. It does seem to work even better with 2-round burst. So maybe someone saw that in a video and thought, well, we can use that as an excuse to make it burst only. Definitely looks very flat shooting, very little recoil, or muzzle flip, I should say. It is striking how, despite how unreal this whole game is, the firearms feel quite real. If they had the case ejection going on, that would really help to sell it.
we've come a long way from 10 minutes ago.
Well, you know, you got to take these things on their own terms. There's no point coming in, old man shouts at sky, and saying, why doesn't this look like Ready or Not, topically? Because it's never going to, is it? It's essentially about pop culture characters murdering each other in bright, shiny ways.
This is just a toilet plunger with grenades attached to it.
A toilet plunger with grenades attached to it.
Have you got a toilet plunger with some grenades attached to it?
I have not, Dave, but we do have toilet plungers and we do have grenades. No, not really. We actually don't. We have brushes because we're not American. Something very wrong about Captain America. I mean, never mind the backpack. Ah, now the barrel seems to be staying put on that pistol. That's weird. We're back to that Mark 23 again. So here, the barrel is functioning as it should, moving a short distance and then staying put. So that's interesting. The hammer is interacting with the trigger, but not in the way that it should. So just like any other double action, single action pistol, you can fire the first shot double action where you cock the hammer with your trigger finger like this. And then subsequently every shot should cock the hammer. So it should be in the rear position for all of those shots. Now, again, I can't believe I'm even criticizing Fortnite for this, but it's interesting to me that they've bothered to animate the hammer and to connect it to the trigger in some way, but not in a way that makes any sense. We can see this lever from the Mark 23 on this Ranger, is it called? And we press that lever down and that decocks the hammer. And we also have the safety depicted as well.
What's like weirdly like super interesting to me is that they've actually put a lot of thought about how the pistol interacts with the ballistic shield, because this is one item. If you pick this up, it comes together. And they've got like a holster for the ballistic shield. There's like a whole magazine system.
Yeah, you've got to give them credit. There's a lot of gun nerdery going on in a game that really doesn't need it. You know, it's purely a bonus thing.
So it is something that has real world credence, at least.
It makes a ton of sense if you're in some horrific siege barricade suspect type scenario, especially the way a lot of European SWAT type forces make extensive use of very heavy ballistic shields, sometimes on wheels, and just like push down a corridor using them. The Bataclan siege, the entry was made behind one of those big rolling shields until it fell down some stairs and they had to just sort of go more kinetic. But so they are very commonly used, well, all around the world, but especially in Europe. So the ability, if you need that volume of fight, like what else are you going to do? If it's on wheels, yes, you can take your hands off and do a reload. But if you're having to hold it on your arm, what are you going to do? Pass it to your squire to reload? No, you need something on the shield. So it's fascinating that's probably only the second time ever I've seen that system, and it's in a video game. And this video game of all video games. Right, well, I think more to talk about there than either of us realized. Amazing how much real firearms content there can be in a game like that. We hope you enjoyed the guns of Fortnite, some of the guns of Fortnite. Please do check out our Royal Armouries side of things, website, social media. Our YouTube channel pumps out a video with me in it every week, nearly every week. Hopefully those are of interest as well. Come and see until the end of June. We have a special exhibition featuring all sorts of crazy guns, not quite as crazy as Fortnite, but some of them as crazy, some of them nearly as crazy. So come and visit us if you can. But we'll always see you again next week.